everybody, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Amanda N, and today I wanted to keep things pretty lighthearted, pretty conversational. I'm still going to try to stick within 10 minutes here, but we're just going to ramble a little bit and talk about a topic that is near and dear to my heart. So that is true crime. Wow, I can't speak today. That is true crime sleuths. So first and foremost, this isn't to say that internet sleuths can't be helpful, far from it. But I wanted to talk about where I think the line is crossed between helpful and harmful. So, Luca Magnata is a perfect recent example of this case, but I would argue that civilians or pedestrians or people kind of taking things into their own hands has pretty much been around forever. I guess you could argue that it's become popularized since, To Catch a Predator, those kind of days where we saw Chris Hansen and how he would catch pedophiles and then send them off to the police, to prison, things of that nature. Now, obviously, that was a pretty full-scale operation. I mean, it was a TV show, and I know Chris Hansen has been incredibly questionable since then himself, but point is, it was a pretty full-scale operation there. So, what about just random internet trolls? Well, that's kind of the case with Luca Magnata. So, for any of you who aren't familiar with the case, I did watch the documentary, Don't Fuck with Cats. I mean, that's the name of it, Don't F with Cats. And in it, Luca Magnata is a criminal, and he starts by killing cats and posting those videos on the internet. Now, that's when people started noticing him. They tried to figure out what it was. You had some of these people trying to figure out what the outlets on the wall were, what the reality show was playing in the background, and it's all over this high, intense music where you're anticipating, oh, it's gonna happen next, they're finally gonna catch him. But in reality, if you watch the documentary, there's one point that I find really interesting towards the end of episode 1, where you find out that somebody else gave these people his name. I won't mention the people featured in the documentary. It's not as if I want to put any hate towards them, but these internet sleuths weren't able to figure out who this was. Somebody else told them, you should look into Luca Magnata, and so they did. And so they found many pieces of evidence that, yes, he was a criminal, he was dangerous, and they did sort of take it to the police. I won't say that they didn't, but for the most part, the documentary gives a lot of credit to these internet sleuths as if they solved this alongside the police, when in actuality, they didn't. They didn't solve who murdered these cats and who eventually murdered a man. Instead, the police did. The police had all the evidence. They were given the video of the crime actually happening, which confirmed who it was to them, but they were able to get their own surveillance tapes from the apartment that Luca had been staying in. They knew that it was him. They arrested him. So in that case, I would argue that true crime sleuths did, I don't want to say nothing, but they really didn't help solve it. So I dug a little deeper and I wanted to find out, have true crime sleuths really been helpful, really solved cases more than they have hurt? And I would argue that it's kind of equal. Of course, it depends on the case. I know that's a bit of a lackluster answer, but it is the truth. But I would say it's equal, and as hesitant as I am to bring an unsolved and brand new case into the mix, I think we've been able to see that quite a bit recently with Gabby Potito. So I'm sure that plenty of you listening or watching know about Gabby Potito. I'm not gonna get into all of that today. But when she went missing, everyone was so quick to blame her boyfriend, Brian Laundries. And I can't say if he had any involvement whatsoever. And now his remains have actually been found. So with this new discovery in the mix, there's a lot of question. Maybe this was a murder-suicide or somebody killed both of them, or again, it's still very new. I'm very, very hesitant to even bring this case up because it's so new. But the point is that the internet really harassed Brian Laundrie's family when in actuality they are missing a son, and we don't know for how long. That could change the moment that I come out with this video because again, so much is unknown. But there was also some help from internet sleuths as well, because the fact that this went viral on the internet also led some van life person, a van lifer, led a van lifer to see her van, to help discover Gabby's remains, to point police in the right direction. So it's not to say that these internet sleuths have been completely useless in this case, but they've also done a lot of damage when they've harassed Brian Laundrie's family potentially unnecessarily. So it's very, very tricky to say for sure, of course, if internet sleuths are helpful or hurtful, but I just wanted to put this out into the world and to kind of give my opinion on the topic. And again, disclaimer, it's just my opinion. I think that the internet is helpful when it works with law enforcement. I know there's a lot of controversy around law enforcement in general these days, but I would say that if civilians are trying to work with the police and give them the evidence that they can, rather than take matters into their own hands, then it's helpful. But once you take matters into your own hands, it can be harmful. So I've seen documentaries and stories out there about Facebook groups or forums that try to catch pedophiles and bait them. But if you're not trained in this and you're not doing it correctly, you could just be releasing a now angry pedophile out there. If you haven't been trained to do it properly, to bring this to the police, to tell the police what you're doing. I'm not saying that the police are doing enough to catch these people all on their own, but unfortunately when civilians take it into their own hands, if they're not following protocol, we are bound by the law. We're bound by how the law works. And if civilians are not educated in that law, then it's where things can get really, really out of hand really quickly. So I would actually argue that cold cases may be a great way to get involved if you want to. Trying to discover who a person may be. I've seen a lot of nonprofits and even just subreddits really talking about, let's try to see if we can figure out who this might be, and you can go through a database and you can go through missing persons list and things that way, try to potentially find new leads and potentially steer a case in the right direction. I have seen cold cases solved that way, and I do think that those cases tend to be better because it's not involving a existing crime, if that makes sense. It's not going to change the outcome in any way. So I would say cold cases, if you want to get involved in those projects, I think those are pretty good to try to get involved in. But even so, it's more so identifying a missing person than a crime. Actually trying to put yourself into a crime, to insert yourself into a criminal act, to catch someone in it. You know what I mean? To do something like that. I can't agree with it. I really can't. And I think the Luca Magnata case, as well as several others in recent years, as well as Gabby Potito, it shows that, yes, speak up if you see something, but to put yourself in a position where you just want to be heard, you just want to be the hero, it can be a big problem. But I was really curious what you guys thought of this. I just kind of wanted to initiate a discussion to see what you thought, to give my opinion. After seeing the documentary, I was pretty surprised how much credit was going to these internet sleuths and what they did and how amazing they are, when in actuality I feel like they didn't really solve anything. Someone else gave them the information to begin with. Plus, Junlin, the victim, he was mentioned very, very little, and I would argue that Junlin's story is also incredibly important, rather than the internet sleuths and how they felt about it. But I'd be curious for your opinions. Let me know in those comments down below. Also, I appreciate you hanging out with me. I know this was a little bit more casual, a little bit less scripted. It's been one hell of a week for me here, so I'm just trying to recover. I really didn't have much time to write a script, but I wanted to put out something for you guys in your spooky season. Next week, I will probably talk about the other topic that was on the poll, which is true crime YouTubers and how they handle these type of situations, if they do it tactfully or tastelessly. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, if that would be a video you guys are excited to see. Alright, I'll see you next time. Bye!